And one of the things that I took from the 12-step circles was this 3-circle sobriety plan. I think it was a nice way to kind of structure behaviors that you can't do, dangerous behaviors, and also healthy behaviors. The 3 circles of sobriety. Many of you probably have heard this. It's a SAA philosophy, I think. And the idea is that you create these 3 circles. The inner circle is what violates your sobriety. The middle circle is something that is tempting or dangerous. And then the outer circle are healthy behaviors that keep you sober and prevent relapse. Now, I'm not a massive 12-step guy. Many of you know this about me. I don't have anything against 12-step. I just don't think that it's as effective for process addiction as it is for substance addiction. But nonetheless, we still need a plan. We still need things to focus on, to integrate. You can't expect unwanted or compulsive behaviors to leave your life without structure, a plan. And one of the things that I took from the 12-step circles was this 3-circle sobriety plan. I think it was a nice way to kind of structure behaviors that you can't do, dangerous behaviors, and also healthy behavior. And so I'm going to use this time in this episode to actually read to you guys my 3-circle sobriety plan, just to give you guys some ideas and spark some kind of interesting discussion. Now, you're going to see my 3-circle sobriety plan. It might look different than some of the other 3-circle plans that you have heard of at 12-step meetings or in your different groups. And again, that's because I'm a huge believer in calling this addiction what it should be called. It's a process addiction. That's what this is. A sex and porn addiction is simply just an inaccurate term. These brain processes that you become addicted to are way bigger than sex and pornography, and they need to be addressed. And some of that can be integrated into your 3-circle plan. So I'm going to dive into mine now first. Now, my inner circle is probably going to look like a lot of your guys' inner circles, right? These are the big no-no behaviors, right? These are the relapse behaviors where, at least with my plan, I'm going to tell my wife when I do these things, right? That's our agreement. So, I'm going to read them off quickly. Again, a lot of this is stuff that a lot of you guys probably already have. So this would obviously be pornography, intentionally viewing provocative material, right? So this could be non-nude material on social media, looking at advertisings, models, TV. Basically, the way I define it here is if it could have been avoided, then it needs to be avoided, right? So, if it's just showing up and I drive by a billboard, obviously that's not an inner circle behavior. But if I am seeking out this, if I knew that there was a provocative billboard in town and I would drive there to look at it, which is something I would never do, but that would be considered acting out by my definition. Basically, if I can avoid it, then I'm going to avoid it. And if I find myself seeking it out, then that's an inner circle violation. Intentionally going somewhere virtually or physically with the intent of objectifying women. Again, this wasn't a massive issue for me, but I wanted to throw this one in here, mainly for my wife, right? So she knows that I'm not going to a place because there are women there and I know they're going to be there, right? So that's part of my inner circle. No strip clubs, no masturbation, no massage parlors or anything similar where sex or nudity occurs. No sexual, romantic, or flirtatious contact with a person outside of my relationship. No communication with women outside of work purposes without my wife's knowledge. So again, just, if I'm going to be texting a female or emailing a female and it doesn't have to do with work, my wife needs to know who this person is. And I just need to tell her that, hey, I'm texting or communicating with this individual and it's not for work. Hiding my location or turning off my phone or leaving my phone at home or in my hotel room, right? So that she doesn't know where I am. Taking off my wedding ring. And lastly, drinking alcohol without my wife present or communicating with her prior. And so why did I do that one? Again, that's more of like a custom one for me. To me, this behavior happens when we are impaired or compromised, and that can happen in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to just be with substances. But, I did act out when I drank a lot of alcohol. And so for me personally, that's something that, I just don't want to drink when I'm not with my wife unless I have communicate with her, right? If we're going wine tasting or whiskey tasting, or maybe I'm somewhere where having a beer would not be inappropriate. But again, I'm going to communicate with with her before I do it. So that's my inner circle. I don't know. It probably looks pretty similar to a lot of your guys' inner circles. And again, what's inner circle? That is classified as a relapse, right? And so that is, if I violate any of those, I'm going to be honest with my wife and tell her. Middle circle. So this one's going to be, you'll see some differences from guy to guy. So a middle circle behavior is something that is risky or something that is dangerous, something you want to keep your eye on. Now, am I telling my wife of all of these? No, not necessarily. I actually do tell my wife a good amount about the middle circle. A lot of guys ask about like how to rebuild trust. After you've your wife, telling her about middle circle activities is actually a pretty good way to build trust, right? It's showing her that you are aware of, some of this risky stuff is going on, and I haven't slipped or relapsed yet, but I'm doing this stuff, and I just wanted to let you know that I'm aware of it. And so my middle circle, what have I put in here as kind of dangerous things for me? So unpredictable situations that can present risk, such as internet sites, social media, video sites, AI generators, bars, concerts, gyms, social interactions, and parties. Now, I'm not going to avoid going to the gym. I love going to the gym. I'm not going to avoid parties. I love parties. I'm not going to not go to concerts. I love concerts. And a lot of the some of the stuff I do for work is on social media, right? So again, this is in my middle circle. I'm not avoiding these things. I'm just being hyper vigilant around unpredictable situations where I can't predict who's going to sit next to me. I can't predict who's going to be in that group at the party that I'm going to go hang out with. These are unpredictable situations, so I just want to have my guard up anytime that I don't know necessarily how it's going to play out. The big one that I want to bring up there is social media or anything like that. So reels, shorts, any platform. It doesn't even need to be social media. It could be just the news. It could be like your Google homepage app on your phone. What I mean is I call them lottery-based platforms. So any platform that is lottery-based, meaning it's a lottery. It's just showing me whatever the algorithm wants to show me. I have no say or control over what they show me. We got to be careful with platforms like that because here's the thing. Come on, we sexual attraction, sexual desire is normal. It's healthy. So if you see if the social media platform chooses to show you a woman who is, in lingerie and they want to show that to you, I mean, you're going to like it and you're probably going to look at it and you're probably going to look at it for a little bit longer than you would look at something that you're not interested in, right? And even if it's just for a fraction of a second. But the problem with that is, what's that doing to my brain? Is that going to make me want to look on it? Am I going to get on that platform more often in hopes of them showing me more content like that, right? And again, that's the problem with lottery-based platforms. So that's a big one that's in my middle circle is just, to the best of my ability, trying to avoid unpredictable situations or unpredictable, internet access. Another one is social situations involving alcohol consumption by others. So let's say I'm somewhere and I'm not going to drink, but everybody else around me might be drinking heavily. So this is middle circle. And if I'm going to this, let's say I'm at a work conference, it's about 10 p.m. I'm starting to notice that, people are starting to get drunk, right? There's, it's crossed the line. It's no longer a professional interaction. It is now kind of turning into a party. So that's going to be something I'm going to watch, right? And if it starts looking like it's really evolving from a networking event and turning into a party, I want to put that on my radar, and that might explore leaving soon before this turns into a potential risky situation. And again, why would I call that risky? For guys, right? If somebody was coming to flirt with you, would you shut it down and leave ASAP? Or would you sit there and drink it in and enjoy it a little bit, right? And, we just got to be careful about stuff like that. I think, in our right mind, we all want to say, oh, I wouldn't let that bother me. Well, just depends. Depends on the situation. Depends on, does the woman meet your arousal template, right? So you just want to have your guard up before those things happen so that when it starts to happen, you can say, Yep, I knew this was going to happen and I'm ready for it. Another one in my middle circle is people pleasing, minimizing my needs and commitments in favor of being liked. And this is a massive problem for me and a lot of high achieving men. We like to please people. It's something that usually high achieving men are really, really good at. But we got to watch for that because I know for me personally, my desire to impress and please others is really high. And so it's not uncommon for me to compromise my morals and values to further impress them. I really need to watch that. That is probably the root of a lot of my sexual acting out. Lying to protect my image, or even exaggerating anything to protect my image or enhance my image. Avoiding feelings by obsessing about work. Again, a lot of high achievers will do this. I think we do it subconsciously, right? We just prefer operating in areas where we excel rather than operating in areas where we don't. And so just watching that where I'm avoiding things. Because again, I don't want things to fester. I don't want things to pile up. I don't don't want to ignore them, right? That's part of my recovery is facing them head on and being honest with them and owning them. Objectifying women in public places or normal life situations. So, are you taking a second look, third look, fourth look, fifth look, right? Just kind of policing some of that stuff, right? Like, again, sexual desire and attraction is normal, but there is a line at which, like, it's like, come on, bro, like, you can't just keep staring at her, right? She's not here for your pleasure. She's here to work out, right? So it's just kind of, watching that professional boundary and rehumanizing these women, which is my next one here. So dehumanizing myself and others by getting lost in the world rather than remembering that there's a true authentic self inside of each and every one of us. So what do I mean by that? Dehumanizing myself. So when I dehumanize myself, I turn myself into a object. Now, a lot of high achieving men do this, right? We turn ourselves into production machines, money making machines. I'm going to accomplish as many hard things as I can. I'm going to make as much money as I can. And we basically stop thinking about our humanity, our desires, our dreams, and we just focus completely on crushing it, killing it, dominating, winning, achieving, whatever it is, right? So I turn myself into a machine that does rather than a person. And then, of course, objectifying others, right? And this doesn't just include women. This can be objectifying men as well, as seeing them as a source of attention, a source of validation, right? I think I've shared this before in a couple other podcasts. One of my biggest pieces of my addiction, if we want to call it that, or my compulsivity, is also in just impressing people altogether. I actually prefer to make men envious of me over and women. I've had countless times where I will be, out at a place where I probably could have slept with a female if I wanted to, and I chose to actually have that billionaire. I left with that person to go socialize, hang out, go to the cigar bar. I chose his attention over, sexual attention, because again, how important is the sexual attention? You can get that anywhere and everywhere. How often do you meet a billionaire who's expressing an interest in kind of collaborating with you? Not as often, right? And so his attention meant more than her attention, right? And so, just kind of being aware of these things, right? Dehumanizing. Because again, I wasn't going out to hang out with that billionaire because I liked him as a person. I was dehumanizing him and saw him as a way for me to get ahead, right? So just not dehumanizing yourself and others. And then last two here, these last two are huge for me. Cancellations or change in plans. One thing that I started noticing was a lot of my kind of compulsive thoughts, addictive thoughts would spring up when my plans were canceled, when somebody no-showed a meeting, when somebody, all of a sudden I have this hour and a half of just dead, wasted time. That would dysregulate me like crazy. I don't like that, right? I don't like feeling behind. I don't like feeling like I'm wasting time. I don't like, feeling like, oh, I have this grand plan to kind of, to enhance my life, and now the plan's ruined. So now my life's going to suck, or somebody's going to pass me up and be better than me, whatever the kind of brain story is. That's a huge one for me. And I just was going to give that example to, as you guys are watching, when you start finding yourself getting to these kind of distracted or desperate places where you do find your compulsive mind kind of speaking up, try to see if you can find trends there. Because what I found was being no-showed, having a cancellation of some kind, a meeting get canceled last minute, that stuff really dysregulated me for a lot of different reasons. And then the last one was, I call it feeling egoic. I'm not going to get into what that means right now. It's a huge, in my recovery groups, this is a huge thing that I talk about with all of my clients, is being egoic, right? Being egoic means acting like somebody who's not really you, right? So acting like the high achiever, acting like the perfect business guy, acting like shifting into some alter ego of yours that impresses people, gets attention, whatever. Basically, you stop being you and you start pretending to be somebody else for whatever reason. I gotta watch when I'm doing that, because again, the problem with a lot of the egos that I use, they don't value monogamy. They don't care about my wife. They care about attention, pleasure, having this, really life full of novel experiences, right? They do not care about my wife. They don't care about my commitments to my wife. They don't care about me a lot of the time. They really just care about getting what they want. So I have to watch when I get into those egoic states. So that's my middle circle. And then lastly here is outer circle. So what's outer circle? Outer circle is doing healthy things that prevent you from all of those in middle circle and inner circle activities. So it's pretty easy. I'm just going to rattle this list off here. So I got the gym. The gym's huge for me. I like to work out. It just keeps me in a healthy place. So I got to keep that in my life regularly. And that also includes, eating clean and eating well. Golfing, I like to golf. It's I'm out in nature. I'm working on a project. My brain's kind of focused on improving my game. Hiking, I love to hike. My wife and I love to hike. We hike 20, 30 miles a week living here in Sedona, Arizona. Being outside, I love being outside. If you guys have seen pictures of my house is hardly a house. I put windows everywhere, and if they can open, great. So, with a press of a button, my house opens. 60% of it opens and actually doesn't have walls, right? I just love being outside. It's such a grounding feeling for me. Very keeps my sober mind active. Listening to music. We have whole house speakers in our house, and I keep music on because it just does. It grounds me. Playing, piano music, ambient music, meditation style of music. Just having it playing in the house, just something about it just makes me not feel alone. I feel kind of grounded and in my body. Meditation. Anytime I find like a really busy day, try to integrate a couple sessions of like 10-minute meditation rounds just to keep myself again from spinning out and becoming egoic. Taking the time to plan and write. A lot of times, us high achievers, we don't have this very predictable 9-to-5 job, right? We have tasks, projects, things we have to do. And so just making sure I'm taking the time to sit down and make a plan and journal and write and brainstorm. I find sometimes, again, I get in like this doing mode, and that can be dangerous for me sometimes. So I'm taking the time to plan. Vulnerable moments and intimate moments with my wife are incredibly grounding and incredibly sobering for me. Intimate moments with support groups, right? So that I can be seen by these men and they can, and I can see them. Have like a real vulnerable connection with men. I mean, that is, that probably should be first on the list of the most grounding. One I wrote was actually watching TV. I can sometimes put on a show that I really, really like or a movie I like, and it can kind of ground me and pull me out of that kind of weird, impulsive thinking. And then the other one is placing your phone in another room. I haven't had a huge issue with like pornography and all that stuff. It just wasn't a massive thing for me personally. However, if you get into those moments and you find yourself kind of like screwing around on your devices, just hoping to kind of see something, careful. That can pretty easily turn into something sexual if you're not watching out. So don't do that. Come home, put your phone on silent and throw it in a drawer. I mean, this, that really has nothing to do necessarily with sobriety. That just has to do with just enhancing your life, right? We don't need to be wasting our time staring at stupid crap on our phones, right? So anyways, this is the 3-circle plan. I like it. It's like I said, I'm not into a lot of this kind of stuff when it comes to recovery. I'm a very science-based, practical kind of guy. But again, we need a plan. We need some sort of reference. And if you're listening to this and you're married, showing your wife these 3 circles and having a very robust kind of thought out plan like this, again, it's really nice for her to know that you're being aware of how to avoid relapse, how to avoid slips. And, nice for her to know that, hey, if I do any of these things, I'm going to tell you. It's part of my plan is these are what I would call a relapse, and I'm going to disclose this to you when those things happen. So, it's worth taking the time to sit down and create a document like this, and have your peer support group, your recovery group, take a peek at it. Have your therapist take a peek at it. And then when it's ready, show your wife.